Welcome, Player Profiler. Today, I'm your host, Jake. You can follow me on Twitter at LewyLewis5. That's LEWYLEWIS in the number 5. On today's show, we'll be talking about the crazy wildcard weekend, and we'll also cover the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams. Let's get fantasy. Breaking news today, though, before we start anything, the Dallas Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy is set to walk. His contract was up after the 2024 season, and contract negotiations have stalled, and they both agreed to part ways. Just last week, the Cowboys actually denied Bears' request to interview McCarthy, but he is now free to do so if there's still interest from both parties. Now, the Dallas Cowboy head coaching job is going to be a challenge for anyone that goes there, and they have to deal with owner Jerry Jones in their way. Jones makes all the business decisions from what he wants, where or how they want to play, and his son also contributes in that. I think his name's Stephen Jones. But also, Cowboys have not reached the NFC Championship game since 1995. So whoever takes on this job will be in high expectation of taking their team to the promised land or at least the NFC Championships, since it hasn't been done in 30 years. But they do inherit a talented team, especially on the defense side of ball, and one of the best receivers in the game, CeeDee Lamb. Dak Prescott is also coming off a season-ending injury, so it'll be interesting how he comes back and which coaching candidate they decide to hire. And speaking of coaching jobs, the New England Patriots just agreed to signing Mike Vrabel as their new head coach. He returns to New England, where he played multiple seasons and won Super Bowls with them. He last coached for the Tennessee Titans as the head coach, but was let go this last year. I also said in last week's episode, this is probably going to happen, and I was correct. I mean, a way to be sure to get the knowledge and everything, follow me and follow us here at Player Profiler. We keep you up to date and surround you with so much fantasy knowledge. Another great way is to join or sign up for our all-in package, which you could get at playerprofiler.com. This will include Dynasty Deluxe, DFS Dominator, world famous draft kit, data analysis, and player rankings. So be sure to get on that and follow us and join us here at Player Profiler. Another great way is to just follow us on YouTube or Twitter. Follow us. We got amazing shows. Also, for podcasts, you could look up Player Profiler, and we have a whole bunch of different shows on there. Also, you can follow my own podcast at Fantasy End Zone. I come out with a new episode every Tuesday during the off season, and new episodes on Thursday and Friday during the regular season. Another exciting news is I will be moving to 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Mondays for the next 8 weeks. In the next 8 weeks, I will be covering news, breaking news. Also, I'll be breaking down each team and what I would do if I was the GM. For example, what the player or what players to cut, keep, trade, what the cap situation looks like, whose contract is up, what I would draft at the NFL draft, and so much more. So tune in for those episodes and be sure to check in the next 8 weeks at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Before we get into recapping the wild card games, let's hear a word from the Podfather.
Oh, incredible news about Fast Draft. Fast Draft DFS is live. It's called the Flex 6 Frenzy. You just draft 6 guys, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends for the Sunday slate. You like Jahmyr Gibbs? You like Jackson Smith and Jigba? You like Tyrone Tracy? Draft him, draft him, draft him. And the beauty is, you can just order 5 teams, submit your rankings, and Fast Draft will email you the results. We awarded $1,000 in prizes our first week, and we're just going up from there. Soon there's going to be a select 6. No drafting at all. You just pick any 6 guys. Our DFS mantra, just say no to salaries on Fast Draft. Don't forget there's free tools on Fast Draft too. You want to get ready for startup season? We've created the best Dynasty mock draft experience there is. And if you want to play in these DFS contests, and our best ball contest for 2025 coming very soon too, just use promo code PODFATHER when you deposit and you get a free draft. It's that easy. And you're like, oh, I already have Fast Draft. Great. Refer a friend. Have them put your username in as the promo code, and then you and your friend will both get an instant deposit match up to $25. We got DFS. We got Dynasty Mocks. We got Best Ball. It's all there for you on fastdraft.app. Check it out. And the promo code is PODFATHER.
Yeah, check out the DFS app. You could also add mine, Louis Lewis 5. Wildcard weekend. We'll start with the first game. Chargers versus Texans. Chat, who did you guys actually predict? I mean, I'll be honest. I thought the Chargers were going to walk all over Texans. Texans haven't really looked pleasing the last few games to say. What was your thoughts on this game? To me, it is just a crap game for how Chargers played. This was the first game on Saturday. Chargers got beat 32-12 against the Texans. To me, I was stunned because I predicted Chargers to win this game. Texans actually had other plans. For the Texans, though, C.J. Stroud had a kind of game, 282 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It's been better than what he has performed as for passing yards. And the resurgence of Joe Mixon appeared when they needed him the most. Over 100 yards and a touchdown. The last few games, he's been banged up. And I do believe they sat their starters last week so they could kind of, rest up and get him fully healthy. But the man of the hour for the Texans, Nico Collins, 7 catches, 122 yards, and a score against his former college coach. Collins last year, we seen in the wild card playoff game have 6 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown. I do believe he left the game with an injury, if I'm not mistaken. Let me know, Chad, if I'm mistaken on that. Pretty sure he did leave the game with like a hamstring. I know he caught that like a 46-yard touchdown. Just play action and just caught a deep bomb. For the Chargers, I want to take a minute. Justin Herbert, coming into this game, he's been red hot, averaging 263 yards, 2 touchdowns in the last 5 games, and he only threw 2 interceptions during those 5 games. This game, on the other hand, he threw 242 yards and a score. Most of that coming on the performance of Ladd McConkey and the 1 catch that he had, 86-yard touchdown. So if you take that away, man, it was a bad game. He also threw 4 interceptions. It was a game he needed to perform well, and he just couldn't get it done. He choked like Kirk Cousins does in primetime games. Remember, this is the same quarterback 2 seasons ago that had a 27-point lead and ended up losing to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Herbert is 0-2 in the playoffs, and this was easily the worst game he played of the year. Will he ever win a big-time game or a playoff game in general? I mean, there's a lot of good teams in the AFC. I think the AFC is better than the NFC overall structured. I mean, you got the Chiefs, you got Bills, Ravens, Bengals that didn't even make the playoffs. Steelers somehow always find a way to win and make and choke, whatever you want to say. It's just, but overall, it's just a terrible performance for Justin Herbert, and it's not acceptable. The Chargers couldn't run the ball at all. The only bright spot on this game was Ladd McConkey, the rookie. 9 catches, 197 yards, and a touchdown. I believe, looking up stat, this was like the third best rookie playoff performance debut of all time for receivers. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It was like Calvin Johnson had 206 yards receiving one game, and I can't remember the other. But Chargers will have to go back to the drawing board this offseason. And Texans, you now have the back-to-back defending champs. You're on the road to Kansas City. Good luck next week. Steelers took on rival opponent Ravens on Saturday's second game. Ravens took this one 28-14. Lamar didn't have to do too much in this game. He had 175 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, while also adding 81 yards on the ground. He didn't do anything because Derrick Henry had ran all over this Steelers defense for 186 yards and 2 scores. Zay Flowers did not play in this one as well. They look for him to be coming back for next week's matchup against the Buffalo Bills, and I think he comes back. Now for the Steelers, Russell Wilson, out of all the losing quarterbacks this week, he probably had the best game out of all of them. He's very efficient. He protected the ball, which is the biggest issue with all the losing quarterbacks. And he put the team in position to score. Unfortunately, they could not run the ball during this game. They only had 29 total yards rushing. But Wilson went 20 for 29, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was, like I said, probably the best losing quarterback stat-wise. At receiver, George Pickens had 5 catches, 87 yards, and a touchdown. But that was the only 2 bright spots on the Steelers team. And their defense gave up way too much running. I think they gave up 299 yards rushing on the ground. It's just, that's not Steeler football. That's just not. The Ravens were dominant, both sides of the ball. Hopefully it'll continue next week in their matchup against the Buffalo Bills. As for the Steelers, they have a lot to do this offseason. And the biggest one, who's going to be their starting quarterback next year? Who do you guys think in 2025, who is the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers? I want to know what you guys think. Put it in the chat. Let me know your thoughts. Also, I will be giving you my thoughts in a couple of weeks. Probably next week, I think I'm doing the AFC North first for covering and being the GM. So tune in next week as well as always. Broncos versus Bills was the first game slated on Sunday. Buffalo takes this one against Denver Broncos 31-7. This game looked like it could begin to be a shootout since the Broncos took the opening drive for a touchdown. But that's all they scored was that touchdown, the opening drive. Bo Nix, I don't know if it was nerves or the Bills defense just locking down this team, but it just looked like right away with ease, Broncos went down, scored, and that's all she wrote for them. He had Bo Nix had 144 yards passing, 1 touchdown. He also had 43 yards on the ground too. The big issue for the Broncos is they have a non-existent number one true running back. They flip from Jaleel McLaughlin, Javonte Williams, Audric Esime. What are they going to do this offseason at that position? Because they need to get it figured out. I don't see them using or re-signing Javonte Williams. I sure the hell wouldn't. He disappeared in most of the games. So that is probably their number one move this offseason is figure out that running back room. Courtland Sutton tried to do his best to help give this Broncos offense the juice they needed. He had 5 catches, 75 yards. Unfortunately, it was not anything to match the Buffalo Bills, where Josh Allen had 272 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, also ran the ball 46 yards. But also contributing in the rushing game was James Cook, 120 yards rushing and a score. Before, for the receiving aspect for the Bills, they need to get Amari Cooper involved. This is why you traded for him this past year during the season. You didn't trade him to get 2 catches, 8 yards. Like, you traded for him to help your team get you in the right path. I feel like next week it's going to be a struggle if they cannot throw the ball to Amari Cooper. And it's going to be a great matchup next week with the Buffalo Bills taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Second game was the Packers versus Eagles. Packers fall to the Eagles 22-10. This game was physical right from the beginning. The opening kickoff, Keyshawn Nixon fumbled the ball, and Eagles recovered it, led to an early touchdown. It was a pretty good defensive battle between the two teams. I thought Eagles were going to walk all over the Packers during this game just because how easy it was to get the ball from Green Bay right away with that kickoff. But Green Bay's defense did shut them down for most of the game, I would say. Toward the end, it looked like they were just so tired, beat up, stupid late penalties, unnecessary roughness penalties that would have led to 3rd and 3, 3rd and 13, something like that. They just did too many dumb plays. Also, Jordan Love struck this game, much like he has all season, 212 yards passing with 3 interceptions. I know injuries became a huge factor for the Packers, especially Elton Jenkins, the offensive guard. After he went out, the backup, I think he had like 4 penalties for 40 yards. I think he had 4 holding calls or some sort. It was just terrible. Every time they got a good play, there's a laundry on the field and just move the ball back. But their bright spot was Josh Jacobs, 81 yards and a touchdown. I see him being there next year. He's already talking like he's going to be there. I sure the hell would want him there, and I do want him there. You don't have a clear-cut backup. Emmanuel Wilson, Marshawn Lloyd was hurt pretty much all year. Josh Jacobs got it done. I think he got the 5th highest in franchise history for rushing yards in his first season. I see him being back there. He wants to recruit teams. Perhaps they get somebody from the Raiders, Mason Crowder. And then at receiver, all year it's been unknown who's going to get the ball, who's their number one. And Christian Watson is set to basically miss all of next year. I don't, with his torn ACL and other ligament damage, I don't know what they're going to do at receiver. And also, They gave Jaden Reed basically the number one targets, I would say, for this Green Bay receiving core. And he ended up catching 4 passes for 46 yards, but suffered an injury, I think, in the third quarter. Also, speaking of injuries for the wide receiver position, Romeo Doubs looked like he suffered another concussion. It's his third one this season. He was even wearing one of those Guardian caps that cover your helmet, and he still suffered a concussion, what looked like. Watching that game, though, he was getting taken to the locker room. You know, he had his arms around 2 people, and basically it looked like they were walking for him, like he was just dragging his feet going into the locker room. To me, that could honestly jeopardize his football career. I think he's got a long way to recover. I mean, having 3 concussions in a 3-month time, 4-month time, it's not looking good. We'll know more detail in the offseason, obviously, but they got to do something. Now at the Eagles, Jalen Hurts comes back from missing concussions, just speaking of it. He only had 131 yards passing with 2 scores. He didn't have to do much, though, just like Lamar Jackson. When you have a Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry running all over the defense, it's amazing. Barkley had 119 yards rushing. He could have had a touchdown at the end of the game, but he broke loose and slid to ensure the win. And as receivers, you didn't have to do much again. You're not going to get a lot with 131 yards passing. I think A.J. Brown, besides reading a book on the sideline, he only had 3 catches, I do believe. The Eagles will face the winner of tonight's game between Minnesota Vikings and Los Angeles Rams. As for the Packers this offseason, go get Jordan Love a number 1 receiver. Somebody that's an actual alpha number 1 receiver. You look at all these playoff teams, what do they most likely have in common? A true number 1 receiver. That is my number 1 thought for the Packers offseason. The last game of the night yesterday, the Washington Commanders doinking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Washington won this game 23-20 with the last second field goal hitting the upright and going in as time expired. Jaden Daniels is one of only a few to get a road victory as a rookie in their first game. He threw 268 yards and 2 scores, also adding 36 yards rushing. They couldn't get anything else besides his rushing. He led the team in rushing. Brian Robinson Jr. had 10 rushes, but 20 yards. It is just a hard thing to do against this tough Buccaneers run defense. Receiving-wise, though, Terry McLaurin performed much like he's done all season. He had 7 catches, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Also in the receiving aspect, Dynami Brown had a career game where he just came out of nowhere having 5 catches, 89 yards, and a score as well. Commanders look to take on the Detroit Lions, so hopefully this victory can help run and lead them to victory in the divisional round. I don't think so, but that's my say. As for the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield looked good this entire game, but costly fumble that led to a Commanders touchdown. It was just bad play, wrong place, wrong time kind of thing. Bucky Irving caps off an incredible rookie season with 77 yards on the ground and 2 catches, 6 yards, but a touchdown. And veteran Mike Evans dominates with 7 catches, 92 yards, and a score. But it wasn't enough for the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers will have to add some help this offseason to get them over the hump of just making the playoffs. Now we're going to I'm going to get into the playoff preview. It's going to be kind of fast. I got to get out of here so the next show can come on. Monday night preview, again, Minnesota Vikings taking on Los Angeles Rams, which is actually taking place in Arizona due to the wildfires over in California. Our thoughts and prayers to everyone that's affected by this with those fires. We'll start with the visitors, Vikings. Can Sam Darnold bounce back after his lack of performance last week in the division title game? To me, I think he's going to have a great game passing. It's going to be a shootout overall. So I do believe he's going to have a great performance. He's going to throw it a lot to Jefferson and Addison. Also, Aaron Jones needs to be healthy for this team to win. Last week he was kind of and we kind of seen that also during that game. But I think he's going to be healthy. This team needs to take a huge step and win this game. As for the Rams, their main question will be which Cooper Kupp is going to show up. Is it the one mid-season that was performing well and high expectations, or is it going to be the one that killed us all in fantasy playoffs and was a dud? Kyren, I don't believe, will rush for much in this game. I don't believe Vikings give up too much with a great front seven. So I don't feel he's going to have a great performance rushing the ball. But receiving, I do believe he can. Like I said, this game is going to be a shootout. I look forward to Vikings getting a road win and taking on Philly. I just think Matthew Stafford's going to make a mistake and throw a key interception, and that is why I'm taking Vikings. I also think Jefferson and Jordan are going to be too much for the Rams to handle. What do you guys think in the chat? And here's my 5-player prop for tonight's game. This is on Sleeper. You can get $55 in promo funds when you use my referral code RF Louis Lewis 5. That's RF dash LEWY LEWIS the number 5 when you sign up. But my player props are Justin Jefferson over 93.5 yards. He's been doing this pretty much every week. I think he's going to have a big game, and that is why I'm taking him. Aaron Jones over 19.5 receiving yards. He's cleared this number the last 4 straight weeks, and he does it tonight. Matthew Stafford throws an interception. I do believe he's going to make a costly interception, and it's going to be a mistake. Also, the Vikings are number 1 in the league with 24 interceptions on the season. Kyren Williams over 1.5 receptions. He's the only healthy running back in LA, and we know they love to stick to one running back per game. Blake Corum is out for the postseason with a broken forearm, and I look for Williams to get a lot of dump-off passes. Finally, I'm saying Cooper Kupp's coming back over 50.5 yards. I think we get mid-season form Cooper Kupp, and that is why I'm taking that. Good luck if you're joining me in tailing this player props. Remember, this is not financial advice. This is just me having fun. Just let me know your thoughts. Am I wrong on any of those or not? And that's a wrap of today's Player Profiler today. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe and follow for more expert analysis and fantasy tips. Remember to follow us on Twitter for all the latest news and updates. Please follow me on Twitter at Louis Lewis 5. I'll catch you guys next week. And remember, I'll be on at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for the next 8 weeks. And I'll catch you guys later, and peace.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.